December 25, 1991. As the Soviet flag fell, command over 45,000 nuclear warheads dissolved in a single night, leaving the world's largest arsenal scattered across 15 unstable republics, unguarded and up for grabs. The CIA believed more than 100 warheads could vanish within weeks. How close did we come to a nuclear catastrophe, and what secrets still remain hidden from the chaos that followed? At 7:32 p.m. Moscow time, the Soviet flag slipped from the Kremlin's pole, and the last president of the USSR, Mikhail Gorbachev, resigned. In that instant, the single command network that had controlled the world's largest nuclear arsenal ceased to exist. The Chegit briefcase system, built for one leader and one country, no longer had a master. The perimeter system, an automated launch network designed to guarantee retaliation, remained active, but the chain of authority above it was gone. For decades, orders had flowed from the Kremlin through a rigid hierarchy, linking warheads in Siberian bunkers, submarines under the Arctic ice, and missile silos spread across 11 time zones. Now, those links were cut. Base commanders waited for instructions from governments that had not formed. The codes, the protocols, the very logic of control all depended on a country that no longer existed. There was no precedent, no plan for this kind of vacuum. In a matter of hours, the world's most destructive force became an orphaned arsenal, scattered, leaderless, and unclaimed. The unified grip that had kept 45,000 warheads under lock and key vanished with the lowering of a flag. 45,000 nuclear warheads, more than ever held by any country, were suddenly scattered across a continent. Ukraine woke up with 1,900 strategic warheads, making it the world's third largest nuclear power overnight. Kazakhstan inherited 1,400, and Belarus found itself in charge of 800, with no technical expertise to manage them. These numbers did not include the 3,500 tactical nuclear weapons tucked away in field depots and bunkers, small enough to fit in a truck or even a suitcase. The arsenal stretched from the Baltic coast to Central Asia, locked inside silos, perched on submarines, and hidden in storage sites whose locations were known only to a vanished bureaucracy. The material at stake was staggering: over 1,200 tons of weapons-grade uranium and plutonium, enough to build thousands more bombs. Inventory charts from the final months of the Soviet Union showed warheads logged on paper, but the reality on the ground was far less orderly. Security systems, built for a single chain of command, no longer matched the map. Guards patrolled fences that separated nothing from no one. In some bases, the only thing standing between a warhead and the outside world was a rusted padlock or an exhausted conscript. Inside Western intelligence agencies, alarms were already sounding. Early CIA cables warned that more than 100 warheads could be unaccounted for within weeks. The risk was not just theoretical. With records incomplete and guards unpaid, the world's deadliest weapons were now at the mercy of chaos and chance. In the spring of 1992, a small group of American officials stepped onto the frozen grounds of Pervomaisk, Ukraine. What they found stunned even the most seasoned experts. 160 SS-19 intercontinental ballistic missiles sat in their silos, each armed with multiple warheads, but the site was guarded by 12 Ukrainian soldiers. These men had not been paid in months. Their boots were falling apart, uniforms threadbare, and the barracks had no heat. One officer summed up the situation with bitter clarity. He said, "We are guarding the world's end, and we have no shoes." Inside the bunkers, locks had been broken for weeks. Inventory records had not been updated since the Soviet collapse. Diesel fuel meant for generators was being traded for bread. The perimeter fence was patched with scrap metal, and the guards rotated shifts to stay awake, using personal pistols and makeshift barricades. Inspectors noted that anyone determined enough could have walked away with nuclear material, and no one would have known until it was too late. Word of these conditions reached Washington. Senator Sam Nunn and Senator Richard Lugar pushed through the Cooperative Threat Reduction Act in June 1992, securing $400 million. American teams returned to bases like Pervomaisk, bringing cash, locks, and food. The mission was clear: stabilize the chaos before the arsenal scattered any further. For the first time, U.S. funding and expertise flowed directly into the heart of the former Soviet arsenal, buying time for diplomacy and dismantlement. The world's largest nuclear stockpile had come within a few unpaid guard shifts of slipping into the shadows. In 1993, 3 kilograms of highly enriched uranium vanished from the Andreeva Guba naval base. Investigators traced the theft to naval officers who slipped the material onto a train bound for Moscow, hoping to sell it on the black market. Some of the uranium was recovered after a joint Russian and Norwegian operation, but not all of it was ever found. The following year, 1994, Czech police seized 2.7 kilograms of weapons-grade uranium in a Prague hotel room. Forensic analysis confirmed the material's Soviet origin, smuggled out by a network of former military traffickers. In Munich, German authorities intercepted 363 grams of plutonium offered for sale, with the seller claiming access to tons more from former Soviet stockpiles. These were not isolated cases. The United Nations has logged more than 2,700 incidents of nuclear material trafficking since 1993, many linked to the chaos that followed the Soviet collapse. Experts like Matthew Bunn warn that these numbers represent only what was caught. Rumors of missing suitcase nukes persist, fueled by defectors like Stanislav Lunev, though no physical evidence has ever confirmed their existence. Each case file and each seizure point to a simple fact: the losses were real, not just a matter of theory. Formal agreements soon replaced chaos with structure. In December 1994, Ukraine signed the Budapest Memorandum, agreeing to surrender its 1,900 nuclear warheads in exchange for security assurances and economic aid. Kazakhstan, under Operation Sapphire, quietly shipped 600 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, enough for dozens of bombs, to the United States by airlift in 1994 and 1995. By 1996, Belarus had transferred its entire arsenal, 800 warheads, back to Russian custody. The scale of the dismantlement was staggering. Over 20,000 nuclear warheads were dismantled from 1991 to 2012. Russia consolidated more than 30,000 warheads into secure sites, supported by international oversight and funding. The Megatons to Megawatts program converted 500 tons of Soviet weapons-grade uranium into reactor fuel, powering civilian energy grids instead of missile silos. The cost of this global effort reached $8 billion, mostly paid by American taxpayers. Behind the statistics lay a logistical marathon: hundreds of trainloads, armed convoys, and months of tense negotiations. The world's largest arsenal was being dismantled piece by piece, but the human cost was only beginning to surface. As the warheads were dismantled and railcars rolled out of forgotten silos, the people who had built and guarded the Soviet arsenal faced a different reckoning. More than 2,000 weapons designers from secret cities like Arzamas 16 and Chelyabinsk 70 found themselves unemployed almost overnight. Western grants and retraining programs reached some, but many of the most skilled experts vanished into the shadows. At least a dozen Soviet physicists accepted contracts in Iran between 1992 and 1995. North Korea quietly hired technicians from Kazakhstan's shuttered facilities. Libya tried to lure away entire design teams, stopped only by last-minute Russian security interventions. Sergei Tretyakov, a nuclear engineer, was found dead in Moscow in 1993. His family never learned why. Colonel Valentin Kovalenko, who had commanded a missile regiment, took his own life after 7 months unpaid. Today, Russia maintains nearly 6,000 nuclear warheads, with hundreds still awaiting dismantlement. In 2023, Belarus began hosting Russian tactical weapons once again. Intelligence estimates suggest that up to 200 former Soviet warheads remain unaccounted. The arsenal is smaller, but the uncertainty is not gone. Thousands of Soviet warheads vanished from maps, but not from history. More than 100 remain unaccounted for, and nuclear material still leaks onto the black market. The world's arsenal is only ever one crisis away from chaos. The lesson: nuclear control is never permanent, only as strong as the next collapse.